and welcome to part 2 of how to shoot real estate videos. In this part we're going to be going over all the editing and post-production work that goes into making the videos. If you missed part 1, you might want to go check out that part first. It's always kind of like talking about like the house setup and the camera setup, and it's about like all the techniques used to get the shots. But if you haven't watched that and you're here for part 2, without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so I've got my Adobe Premiere project opened up here. I've got a sequence. It's just a 24 frames per second sequence at 1080p. And then I have all my clips here on the left-hand side for the project. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my clips just by clicking the top clip, holding down Shift, and then click on the bottom clip. And then now that we have all of them selected, we're going to hit the right mouse button, go into Modify, Interpret Footage, and then here, under Assume this frame rate, we're going to click that box. And then we're going to set the frame rate to 24. Now what this will do is, since we shot this all at 60 frames per second, as we went over in the first part, this will automatically slow down all of our clips to 40% speed, which is very useful for us because it'll make us able to control the speed a lot more, and it'll also just make this footage a lot more smooth. And smooth is key for making a really good real estate video. All these like kind of like bumps or noticeable steps in like the camera movement really take away and make the footage feel really amateur. So this is like a good first step for setting us up for success by slowing all the footage down to 40%. The next step of what I do is I'll kind of like do like a rough cut of all the clips. So I'll go through each clip one at a time and pick up by using the I button and the O button to select the in and out. I'll select each part of the clip that I want to use in a project and just kind of like roughly assemble them into like different sections in the project. I'll put the aerials, the exterior shots I have, and then maybe I'll put like all the shots I have of the main floor together. I'll put like all my upstairs and downstairs shots, and I'll just kind of like put them all in my project so they're easier to work with. And then after that, I'll select my music, which I'll talk about in a bit here. Alright, so now that we've got all our footage selected for our project, the next thing we need to do is decide what we want to use for the song for our project. And you know, this is kind of like where you have a lot of freedom and creativity to choose a song. I mean, for the most part, unless the client has a specific request for the song, which can sometimes be pretty interesting. But for the most part, I'd say you'd want to stay away from your typical corporate music. You know, your typical like jingles, something that you'd hear in like a PowerPoint presentation. It's so overdone, and I think it just makes a video feel instantly like dated and unappealing to watch. Instead, try to look for more maybe like kind of like lo-fi or jazz hop, even like some modern riffs on the classical music. Something like elegant like that is like a really safe bet that everyone will like. You know, if you know that it's in like a younger neighborhood, you can definitely try and use like some more like electronic music, kind of like EDM. Again, keeping it like conservative. You don't be using anything with like too much heavy bass or anything like that. But just like something that has like a really like nice upbeat that's also like very like modern and appealing to like most viewers. I get most of my music from Epidemic Sound. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I find it has like a really good selection, and they even have like an entire album dedicated to real estate music. There's Artlist, you can like YouTube for songs. The important thing for the song is like decide if it's okay or not to use a copyrighted song. And the only part where it really becomes an issue is if you deliver it to your client and then they want to pay to advertise their video. Let's say they want to advertise it on Instagram or Facebook. If they want to pay to advertise it, it has to be a non-copyrighted song. So, you know, it can't use Holy by Justin Bieber or anything like that. Otherwise it will get flagged and taken down. So make sure you clarify with them before you shoot the video, or even after you shoot it. Say, hey, like, are you planning on pumping money into this to advertise it? Because if so, we're going to have to use a copyright-free song. Alright, so once you have your song and we have like the general tempo and beat of the project, we can go ahead and start fine-tuning our project. For this particular project, I did have aerials, and I find that aerials and drone shots are a really, really great way to kind of like set up like an establishing shot for the project. So for this particular project, it had like this like kind of like little lake or pond backing onto it, which really kind of showed the community of the house, I think, which is a huge selling point for it. So I really wanted to start with that as kind of like my establishing shot here. So I've got like a nice wide area showing the whole little like area around the lake. So this is definitely like my first opening shot. It looks pretty good right now. I think the 40% was a bit too slow with that, so I'm just going to speed it up a little bit just by pressing Control R or Command R if you're on Mac, and just changing the speed there. And then that'll obviously make the clip shorter, so let's make it a bit longer here. And now I'm just kind of happy with that. I'm going to add like just a general fade in at the beginning of our project here. I'm going to choose where our song ends, starts here. And so then we, again, my second shot here, I've got a nice shot of a couple kids playing hockey. Holding for the same amount of time. So for my third shot here, you can see it shows the house for sale, and then it goes to show the pond. Instead, so we've already showed kind of like the pond area behind the house. I'm going to start with the pond and then reveal to the house to make it more specific of like what we're actually showing in this video. And you always want to be careful like not to leave it too long before showing the house to make it very clear what the intentions of the video are. A lot of times agents will have like ideas to put like a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning of their video, like tons and tons of branding and things like that. But I always try to make a suggestion to leave that stuff for the end, because at the beginning it's so important to get like your viewers' attention and get them like engaged in the video right away without having like all this verbiage thrown at them or like make it like so obvious that you're trying to like sell them something. So just start with some like really, really pretty, engaging shots and then make it more specific as you go. Anyway, so for this shot, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off by reversing it. So again, I'm gonna press Control R, reverse speed. And then now you'll see it'll start with the lake and come back to the house. I'm gonna make it a little bit longer at the end here. Okay. So the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna speed remap it. So I'm gonna go over to the Effects tab and click on my clip. And actually, since it is a reverse clip, I'm gonna start off by nesting it, because you'll find if you reverse a clip and you try and speed remap it, you can get into a lot of like technical issues, so it's a really good idea to nest it first. And now we're going to start off with a slow shot, and then we're going to speed it up right about here to make our transition to the house a lot quicker. And we're going to ramp it a little bit here just by pulling apart on the tabs. And so right about here, near the end of our clip, we're going to add another keyframe. And if you ever want to make this bigger, you can just pull over here. And then we're just going to pull down so we get back to 100% speed. Because our 100% speed, remember, is actually 40% speed, so it's going to be slow motion. Okay, so now I'm just going to watch it back here. So showing the pond. That looks great. One thing that I like to do to all my speed remapped clips is I like to add this effect called Real Smart Motion Blur, or RSMB. And what this does is it kind of makes it, it gives kind of like a shutter blur, motion blur, not shutter blur. It gives a motion blur to clips that don't naturally have it. It makes the speed feel like more realistic, because if the camera was actually moving that fast at that shutter speed, there would be motion blur. But since it was captured at a slower speed and then we sped it up, there is no motion blur, which it can feel very like jarring to the viewer. So to fix that, what I do is I start off again by nesting the clip. And then I'll go into my effects and click RSMB. And since I'll have my clip selected, we're going to drag it, ice double click. And for the blur amount, I like to switch this to 0.7 and 90. As a side note, you can kind of replicate this effect by using Gaussian blur and directional blur, but it is not quite the same and not as good and more work. So, I mean, if you're in the business and you're going to be doing these kind of things a lot, I think it's worth the $100 or whatever it costs for the plugin. It makes a big difference in your videos and can really help you stand out. So, let's go back here and we'll see if I need to render it here to watch it. Alright, so let's see how it looks with the RSMB here. Oh, so good. Just so buttery smooth. This feels very elegant. So, very happy with that. Next, I'm going to move on to some ground shots here. So, I've got this ground shot here with my A7 III, kind of showing the main entranceway as well as like the front of the house. This is like a really, really good, like good staple shot to have. I'm just kind of showing the entranceway along with the house from an angle. That looks great there. Next, we're going to show a closer shot. So this is kind of like revealing from the foreground to the front door. Remember when I said that in the first video, foreground is your friend? This is why. It's really nice to have these dramatic reveals. And this clip is actually reversed. So the actual clip was shot like that. so because I had it on autofocus, so it's showing the door first before it could autofocus on the closer foreground there. So then I just reversed it. And now it looks perfect, showing the front entranceway. It's a nice imitation in, so we're going to move on to the interior. So this shot, we have the main foyer going all the way to the kitchen here. What I've done with this shot here is I've just kind of warp stabilized it before we do anything with it. And the reason for that is this was shot on a gimbal, so even though it should be pretty smooth, there's still like some steps and some movement in it. So I want to get it buttery smooth before we speed remap it, because those steps will show up a lot more once we speed remap it. So it's warp stabilized. We can't change the speed when it's warp stabilized, so we're going to nest it. And now that it's nested, we can change the speed on it. So we're going to show the entrance for a little bit here, and then we're going to grab the speed and just ramp it up here to about, I'd say maybe just under 1,000%. Yeah, I'm going to try and slow down and speed up to the beat of the music as well. It really helps the transition. So around here, there's a nice piano stroke. So we're going to lower it down to 100 again, because remember, 100 is actually 40%. Yay! Okay, perfect. And again, we're going to nest it and put on our motion blur. So a good rule of thumb when editing like the larger areas of the house, like the kitchen and the living room, is to have 2 to 3 wide shots, 1 or 2 medium shots, and then 1 or 2 close shots or detail shots. So that's what we're going to do for these ones. So I have this first wide shot showing off the kitchen, establishing that we are there. I'm going to look for another wide shot here, because we've got a nice medium shot here. And notice between the movement between these two shots, we're going right to left in this one, right to left in this one. Motion is huge for showing transitions between different shots. So try and keep that in mind. 1, when you're on site, and 2, when you're editing, if you need to reverse clips to try and make the speed match. And with that said, I'm actually going to reverse these first 2 clips. Make them going left to right. Because this third shot, igniting, can only be played forward. And I just wanted to keep the motion between the 3 shots the same. Alright, so then whenever you're done something on the level that you're working on, so whether you start with the main level or the top level, I always find like it's a really good idea to kind of show like this transition shot of you're moving to a different level. So rather than like you're jumping from like the living room to the bedroom, and if the bedroom's on a different level, I mean, if you didn't show that to the viewer, they wouldn't know that the bedroom's actually on a separate level than like the main living area with the kitchen and the dining room, which can be really appealing for some people. So I think it's a really good idea to try and show as accurate as you can the general flow and like workspace of the house. So for this, now that I'm done with the main level, I'm just going to show a shot looking up the stairs, and that's very obviously showing that now we're moving upstairs to show the space upstairs. You don't have to put too much time into like the non-main exciting areas of the house. I'd say for the most part, and obviously it depends on the house, but the most exciting parts where you want to spend the most effort in the editing and the most shots would be the kitchen, the living area, and the master bedroom. Other than that, all the other areas, I mean, obviously with exceptions, only need like a couple shots to show it off, because you only have so much time in a video, 2 minutes usually or under, to show the viewer all the important parts of the highlights of the house. So you don't want to spend too much time on the non-exciting parts of the house. Okay, so now we're into the master bedroom. So I have this kind of like introductory shot showing us kind of like walking into it. This one's really nice because it kind of shows the door to the bathroom, which is the shot that we're going to show next. And again, it's like if the bathroom is nice, have a nice 1 or 2 wide establishing shots, and then really punch in and show the details of this bathroom. So for this one in particular, double vanity. That's pretty cool, right? So we're going to show like a nice foreground reveal shot of double vanity. And as well, this beautifully staged bathtub with this nice large window over top of it. Again, be a very appealing detail for potential buyer. So I always like to start with the front, exterior, establishing shots, all the interior shots, and then end with the backyard and surrounding area shots. And I find a really good way to introduce that you're back outside is if you have it an aerial shot, showing like a more wider establishing shot. If not, I mean, all the ground stuff will work just fine. For this shot, I just have like a nice little circling shot of the house. And then we're going to again go in a bit closer here to show the house. I like this shot kind of like the up and backing away. We move on. Now we want to show off like the surrounding area. Again, a big selling point of this house is it's on like this cool little like nature reserve in the whole backyard. So just kind of show it off stylistically so we can have fun with it. At the end, So while I was shooting all this, I set up my little GoPro on a time lapse while I was filming the interior of the house. So I have this nice little time lapse showing like time passing around the house. I think it's like kind of like a great way to end the house if you want. And normally where it fades out here, this is where I put the branding of the real estate agent or whatever they wanted at the end of the video. But I think just showing the front of the house, even if you just copy and paste the exterior shot you have from the beginning of the video to the end here, I think that's also a great ending, just to kind of like bring it back around full circle. So we're not done yet. The last thing we have to do, which I have a lot of fun with, is color correct and color grade it. If you know any shots are like really like over or underexposed, you can fix those right away before you start to grading. Like for this shot in particular, I know that it's going to be very underexposed, so I'm just going to kind of open up my scopes here and just kind of like balance it out a little bit more. Something like there. It might be noisy, so we might have to bring it a bit down, but just kind of go through, see if there's any shots that are outwardly exposed incorrectly. So once everything is corrected properly, we can move on to grading, the fun part. I have a couple like LUTs or like preset color profiles that I use for all of my projects. So what I do to load them up is I just drag on my adjustment layer, and usually I'll again put on different adjustment layers into the different cameras I used. So I have like my few drone shots, so those will be one adjustment layer with a LUT, and then I have one for my A7, right? So I'll just drag that on top of all my A7 clips, and I'll go into the Metric Color in the Creative tab where it says Look, Browse, and I have all my LUTs saved here, so I'm just going to load it in. And just kind of drag it around. Okay, so now that the LUT's applied, I'm just kind of going to go through and see if anything needs to be corrected or if anything needs to be like stabilized a little bit. Just do like one final like little check through and kind of like fine tuning. See how I like everything. One more thing that I want to mention is as you're going along here, if you see anything, any of your shots that have maybe like an off-white balance, because I did say in my first part that don't have to worry too much about setting the white balance, which I know may be controversial. And if you want to set your white balance, fine. I'm just some guy on the internet telling you how to edit videos. But if you find the white balance is off, just grab this little eyedropper tool that's under basic correction. Click on some kind of like white or off-white part in the clip, and that'll give you like instantly a good white balance. So for me, for real estate videos, I don't see the point in like really trying to dial in the white balance on site. But again, each their own. So here's a quick look at the final product. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about anything I did in this video, or something I didn't really cover, please leave it down below, and I will try to get to it right away. I'm going to be making like a lot more of these style of videos. I feel like I've started to like kind of really make a small community out of this. I've gotten a couple really nice comments on my last videos. It's really encouraged me to make more. So I really genuinely do appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos. But that's it for this one. Until next time, thank you so much.